Gaurangji, thank you for taking time to talk to me and coming to Mastradio.com and talk about the recent verdict which we just had yesterday. So first of all, for the audience who don't know you, maybe it would be a good idea to just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and how you're associated with this case.
Sure. My name is Gaurang Vaishnav. I've been a member of Devyendu Sinha of America, which is VHPA, for a long time. And one of the I would say mainstay of VHPA is to help people in need. That is how I came into the contact of this case, Dr. Devyendu Sinha murder case. It so happened I knew Dr. Sinha from 1998, since he was a life member of VHPA. And then this unfortunate incident of his murder happened. So I felt doubly my duty to be with the family. And that's what I've been doing from the beginning of this situation.
Okay. So Gaurangji, how long this case has been going on?
The murder occurred on the night of 25th June 2010. And the last verdict came yesterday, so that is 3 years, 3 months and some days. So that is how long it has been going on.
Right, and there were like 5 defendants in the case, right?
Yes, what we found out in this process is that the wheels of justice move very slowly in this country also. There are so many variables, so many dates that are changed. And of course the attorneys from the defense play games to prolong the case. My feeling is that the idea is to dilute the community participation, community anger, because after a while people forget about the case. That is what has happened in this case also. So that is how it took so long.
And was it your observation as well that people indeed forgot about the case?
Yes, though I had tried to keep people abreast of what is going on every time I had to go to the court. And there are several people who give feedback also, it's not that. But by and large, people move on. Unless it is your own family, you tend to forget it.
Yeah.
It did happen.
And it's true. Probably, I think we in media are also slightly to be blamed because of late, I don't think there was a lot of press coverage on the issue, especially on the final verdicts and so forth. I mean, the final verdict we all cover, but before the heat, I think like what you said, the media coverage didn't have the same enthusiasm as it used to have, let's say, in 2010 or 2011, so to speak.
Actually, here I would like to say that I'm very deeply saddened by the ethnic media's insensitivity. For example, our media finds time to cover Bollywood, dances, everything else, but they don't find time to come and sit in the court. In both the trials, I have not seen a single media person come and take notes or listen to the testimonies. We had to beg and cajole them, even to put the things on the, let's say, TV. So it is a sorry state of affairs. Our media, I'm talking about ethnic media, makes a living on us Indians. But they don't care for issues of the community, and that needs to be changed.
Right. So talk about the verdict. Let's start from the verdict yesterday. So 2 of the final guys were acquitted. So tell us the trauma and basically what really happened in the court, because obviously you were there. And I was definitely following it, but I was engaged in another engagement. And as soon as I heard it, my jaw dropped. I was like, how is it possible that, though I think when the incident happened, the defendants were all tried as, or attempted to be pretended as teenagers or teens, but they were tried as adults, right?
Yes, there was that time there was a lot of pressure from the community which helped. Though except for one guy, all were underage, the prosecutors decided to try them as adults, and that was good. Yesterday's verdict was for 2 people, 2 of the assailants. One Mr. Cass Johnson, second one is Mr. Tenley, Christian Tenley. this trial lasted for 7 weeks, and the jury took 6 days to come to a decision. Built upon what we had heard in the court, on the evidences that were shown, on the testimonies of various parties, it was absolutely clear to all of us that these guys will be convicted. Specifically Mr. Tinley, who was the one who threw the first punch on the side of the head of Mr. Sinha, and then successive attack on Mr. Sinha. However, we were disappointed when jury came up with not guilty on almost all the counts. There were 10 counts. Some of them were the minor counts, some were the major counts. Two major ones, one was for conspiracy to commit a crime, which is a second degree offense. And the major one was the murder charge. And then there were 3 possibilities. They could have been convicted for murder itself, which carries 30 years to life prison term. If not that, then they could have been convicted on aggravated manslaughter, which carries 10 to 30 years term. And if not that, then last possibility was reckless manslaughter, which carries up to 10 years.
So from defense point of view, though, obviously one has to be in jury's shoes to kind of see the whole evidence trail. But from what we glean out of media and the other sources is that some of the kids definitely had serious issues behavior-wise or character-wise, even sometimes, if you want to call it.
Yes.
One of them definitely had a serious bail amount set forward. The others had similar, raunchy affairs or different kind of tantrums. So, what is it that was missing, you think, in the jury's mind, evidence-wise, that they couldn't really pinpoint?
I think I can write a book on my experience about jury system, which is touted as the best system in the world, which it is not. To very briefly to give an example, at the end of all the testimonies, first of all, jury is not allowed to take any notes. To think that they'll remember everything that I hear in 7 weeks is just ridiculous. Then, at the end of the trial, before the jury goes to deliberation, the judge, what is known as judge, gives them the law. That is, judge reads to them various aspects of the law and how to apply it to the case. Now, that instruction is pretty much legal stuff. It was 117 pages long. It took judge more than 2 hours to read it out. Now, even for somebody like me, who has pretty good grasp on the subject, and I'm well educated, after the first half an hour I was lost. A jury that consists of people from different backgrounds, different level of education, them to expect them to understand it, carry with them in that room, then apply it judiciously is next to impossible.
So it was very daunting for them to comprehend it.
Absolutely. Any jury would be flabbergasted with that. And then top of that, there are several occasions when a defense lawyer would say something that he knew that is not allowed to be said, but he'll slip it in anyway. Then judge would ask jury to neglect that or not to take into consideration. But human mind is a mind. It is not on and off switch. Once you hear it, it stays with you. So those things also affect the jury. And from what I have read in one of the newspaper websites is that some of the juries have said that there were people who were convinced that these guys are guilty of all the charges. But then there are others who felt these are 2 young kids and therefore they should be not given the punishment. That again goes against the law because judge had told them clearly that age of the defendants cannot be an issue in the judgment. But it came in. So obviously the jury system is not working the way it's supposed to work.
Right. So when the incident happened, most of them were below 17 or 15?
No, below, they were mostly 17 and 18, under 18, but just about 18, but nobody was 15, no.
Right. So, and by now, they were all obviously adults.
20 and 19 years, they all are adults now.
Right.
And you asked me about the character of trait of these people. And I would say that you look at what is their behavior before this happened, it's clear that these are no saints. Or these are not just the kids who are out for fun or some excitement. The defendants on the stand have said that they habitually in summertime would go up behind the school to drink and smoke pot. On the day of this incident, in one of the friends' home, they were smoking weed. And then they went to this school, back of the school, and they were able to procure liquor, though they were underage, and they consumed it. That was for them, it's a routine affair. So obviously they were not kids who we would consider as normal kids.
Right, and these evidences or the trails which were put forward by the plaintiff side or defense side, I mean...
yes, even they themselves, the defendant themselves said that that's what they did.
Yes, but it didn't matter to the jury, obviously.
Obviously not.
Okay.
And then one of the, this guy was not on trial this time, he already has pleaded guilty, Julian Daly, while he was on the bail, 3 times we broke the rules of the bail. His bail was successfully raised from $400,000 to $1 million. Even then, after that, when he was under house arrest, he had asked his friend to steal some electronics from his neighbor's home, for which he was caught. So ultimately, at that point, his lawyer decided that it's best in his interest to put him behind the bars and plead guilty. So that is his guy. And one of the defendants, Mr. Tinley, who was acquitted yesterday, he's already has another case on him where he's charged with passing fraudulent checks. So that tells you what kind of characters these guys are.
But obviously the end result is that the jury didn't find them guilty on the real count which Dr. Devyendu Sinha lost his life with. Yeah,
it is just, I wonder how these jury members go to sleep at night. Because one of the jury members has said that they thought, while they were deliberating, that there was no weapon. He said if it was a knife or gun, it would be easy to convict. Here it was just a fist. So they had no way to know whether there is intention was to kill or not. That is so preposterous. Fact is that the person died. And even the law is applied says that it's a murder.
What did the post-mortem report say?
It said that there was a cerebral hemorrhage because of the blunt force trauma, and it was such a severe blow that the brain had shifted 6 centimeters. It was not just a small tap. And there were multiple blows, at least 3 by Mr. Tinley, then by others by Mr. Daly. And when Dr. Sinha was on the ground, writhing in pain, trying to shield his head, these guys kicked him on his head. Now, what else do you want to convict somebody?
And that's pretty intense. So this was all proven by plaintiff attorney.
It was brought out, and then Mrs. Sinha's testimony, her both sons' testimony, provided a clear idea as to who was the person who hit Mr. Sinha first. It was Mr. Tinley. It is pathetic that the questions raised by the defense as to inconsistency in the statements of Mrs. Sinha and her sons about what these guys were wearing. Now, one should think, and I think you should also think about that. If your loved one is being beaten to death in the middle of the night, within 1 minute, would you remember what the guy was wearing? Would you even have a sense of that? Would you making that as a central issue, telling that Mrs. Alka Sinha was a liar? That is how these lawyers work. It is despicable. It is despicable, really. And for jury to fall for it is even worse.
Yeah, obviously they couldn't link up the evidence that somebody could die from the fist, which is very unfortunate because people who do die in these fightings, and it's not the first one, obviously. So it's very unfortunate that the evidence was not echoed heavily into their heads. But the jury panel selection is dependent on both sides, right?
Both sides.
Plaintiff as well as defense.
Yeah, the way it works is because there were 2 different defendants. The prosecutors had up to 20 names which they can reject without any given reason. Just, I don't want this guy.
Right.
While those guys had equal number also. And what we saw, jury selection took almost 3 days, and they went through 300 potentials to get 16 people, 12 plus for alternate. That tells you how much both sides, of course, but more defense side tried to keep away potential jurors that they thought might not be good for them. There were, I believe, 3 or 4 people of Indian origin in the potential pool, and they were outright rejected. I don't want to believe that jurors think in terms of race. I really don't want to think that way. But where the lawyers go after this thing, you wonder that is this just a play for judge and the lawyers, or is it somebody's life that you're talking about?
Yes, obviously the judgment is very dramatic for the family, Sinha family, and we can only comprehend what they must be going through for past 3 years. Where do you think the options are now for the family or the community? Well, by the way, what has been the community reaction to all this so far? What do you gleaned so far?
To my last post that I made to the community, I've got almost 50 responses declaring or expressing their horror at the verdict, expressing their disgust, expressing their anger, frustration, everything. And if you go to nj.com, which is Star Ledger site, or mycentraljersey.com, which is Home Tribune website, and you will look at the comments, and these are mostly all mainstream Americans. And you will be hard-pressed to find any comment that favors the defendants. Everybody is saying this is a foul, this is a wrong decision, and the judiciary is not functioning.
Sure.
So community is outraged, of course, and now question is what next? Obviously, Mrs. Sinha is distraught because this was her last hope that there will be some semblance of justice. She was not looking for blood, but at least it would have been good for her to know that at least some defendants, some of the aggressors are punished properly. But that didn't happen. And she actually left halfway when the jury read not guilty for Mr. Tinley for the murder. She just left the courthouse in disgust even before they could come to Mr. Johnson. And we were in the court because we had to wait till the end of it. And then we tried to locate her, and we found she already was about to drive back to home. So we persuaded her not to go alone. I put a friend with her to go, and then I followed later on with my car. And we were with her for about 3 hours at her home. And she was non-communicative. She was totally self-shocked. After a lot of efforts to divert her mind, first sentence she said, and which broke everybody's heart, was, "I have lost everything." That's how she feels about it. Now there is no recourse because as far as we understand, there is no appeal that we can be made from prosecution side. Only thing we can do as community, what we plan to do, is to start a petition to the judge to sentence those 3 guys to the maximum level permissible and not go soft on them. So that will start in a day or so. The sentencing is October 18th. So by that time, we need to get a lot of signature on that petition. So I request everybody who is listening to this to sign that. And also one request to everybody is to come in numbers on 18th October to the courthouse.
Definitely. What can we as a society do, or what's your message to, say, for example, the families or the fathers or the parents of such kids who need serious attention? And even if you are listening as a teenager or being in high school, what's the message you want to give out to basically kids who are listening to this right now? When I came to this country in 1970, there used to be on television at 10 o'clock a message. I don't know if it's still there or not. Exit it at 10 o'clock. It will say, any channel you were watching, it will say, "Do you know where your kids are?" Meaning parents have to know what their children are doing, where they are, who their friends are, who their Facebook friends are. It is now more difficult with the social media being so prevalent. You don't know what your children are doing.
And we cannot blame children. They are at an age which is impressionable age. They are under peer pressure to do things that are not good. It's up to the parents to invest time in them, not let them do what they do as with their friends. Same time for all the young children, young teenagers, my request is that this is not a problem of Americans only. This problem is very much with all of us. I know of several Indian children who have either were part of a gang or on drugs and all kind of mischief they are involved in. It is up to us as children themselves to watch out for each other and know that what our values are and stand by that. Because once you are caught in this web, even if you are convicted for 6 months and don't go to jail, that will be a record that you will live with all your life. You will not get a good job, you will not have any standing in society, and you will live a miserable life. And more than not, such cases, people go into a cycle of criminality and ruin their lives. And for community, this is a wake-up call. We have to stand together as community, be visible, and put pressure on the system so that justice is not miscarried.
Thank you, Gaurav ji, for coming out and talking to us about this horrific incident. And we look forward to covering the events from community ends in days ahead. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're quite welcome, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity to come to the community. I am just like anybody else. I'm an individual. I don't sit on a pedestal and tell you what to do, but I feel for our community, and I hope we will get better from this. And I am sure your prayers are with Mrs. Sinha and family so they can come out of this shock. Thank you.
Thank you.